It was October 1990, inside a briefing room at the Suzuka circuit in Japan, and the air was the kind that makes you feel like something is about to break. An FIA official read from a sheet of paper. The rule, he explained, was that any driver who missed the chicane at turn 15 could use the escape road to rejoin and would not be penalized. Most drivers nodded. Then one man slowly turned his head and looked at Ayrton Senna. Alain Prost looked at him the way a chess player looks at a piece he believes he controls. He allowed himself a small smile. That smile meant something specific. It meant, "Do you remember last year? Do you remember what we took from you?" Prost smiled, and Senna stood up, said nothing, and walked out of the room. If you've never seen a man carry an entire year of injustice in his posture, you've never watched Ayrton Senna walk out of a room. Subscribe to this channel. Every week we tell stories like this one about human beings pushed to their absolute limit and what happens when they push back. To understand what was about to happen that Sunday, you need to go back exactly 12 months. The McLaren garage in 1989 was the most uncomfortable place in all of Formula One. Two men shared the same team, the same car, the same colors, and absolutely nothing else. Alain Prost was 33 years old, a two-time world champion, methodical and politically sharp. He understood that winning a championship wasn't just about going fast, but about managing everything around the race. The engineers, the press, the federation, the narrative. They called him the Professor. The name fit. Ayrton Senna was 28 and drove as though the laws of physics were suggestions. He had arrived at McLaren after years of forcing his way through teams that didn't fully understand what they had. He spoke about God, about faith, about a feeling when the car and the circuit and his body became a single instrument. Prost found this unsettling. Most people did. Through the season, they fought with a bitterness that made the pit lane uncomfortable. They stopped speaking directly. They communicated through engineers, through the team principal. Senna won 6 races. Prost won 4. Going into the Japanese Grand Prix with 2 races remaining, Prost led the championship by 16 points. Senna needed to win both remaining races to survive. On lap 47 of 53, with Prost leading, Senna saw a gap at the chicane and launched his McLaren up the inside. Prost had announced to the team, to the press, to anyone who would listen, that he would not move. Not this time. He had spent a year making space for Senna and watching his teammate exploit it. He turned in. Their wheels locked. Both cars slid straight into the gravel. Prost climbed out, removed his gloves with the calm of a man who believed the matter was settled. Senna sat in his stalled car for 1 second, 2 seconds, then waved at the marshals. They pushed him. The engine caught. He rejoined the track, made a pit stop, returned to the circuit, and drove with the kind of focus that exists on the other side of despair. He passed car after car and crossed the finish line 13 seconds ahead of second place. Then, they disqualified him. The official reason was cutting the chicane. Senna and McLaren argued that no advantage had been gained, only the position he had already lost in the collision. Their appeal went to the FIA tribunal in Paris and was rejected, accompanied by a fine of $100,000. FIA President Jean-Marie Balestre, who was French, had been accused throughout the season of favoring his compatriot Prost. The tribunal's language read less like a sporting judgment and more like a conclusion reached before the hearing began. Senna sat in front of cameras at a press conference in Adelaide with red eyes and a tight jaw, and said that people had taken something from him that was not theirs to take. Prost was champion. He left McLaren for Ferrari and spent the winter being measured in public, privately certain that the matter was resolved. He had the title. He had the political apparatus. He had everything that could be won outside of a racing car. What he underestimated was what was happening inside Ayrton Senna. Because when Senna walked out of that briefing room in Suzuka in October 1990, when he heard the official calmly announce that cutting the chicane was now permissible, that the exact regulation used to destroy him 12 months earlier had been quietly reversed, he did not rage. He did not make a statement. He simply stood, pushed his chair back slowly, and walked out. Those who saw his face described something that was not anger in the usual sense. It was colder, the face of a man who had just received confirmation of something he had already decided. Qualifying placed Senna on pole position. Prost qualified second, 1 row behind him. The same positions as 12 months earlier, the same circuit, the same stakes, everything identical. Except Senna had spent a year with the memory of that disqualification sealed inside him like something in a pressure vessel, and the vessel had no more room. The lights went out. Prost got the better start. He took the lead, drove with the clean confidence of a man who had been in this position before. He was ahead. He was in the racing line. By any objective reading, he had won the first engagement. Senna never lifted. Into turn 1, at a speed that telemetry later confirmed had not been reduced, Senna drove his McLaren directly into the side of Alain Prost's Ferrari. Both cars left the track. Both men were uninjured. The championship was settled. The paddock went silent in the way places go silent when something has happened that everyone understands, but no one knows how to speak about yet. Prost climbed out and said that what Senna had done was absolutely disgusting. He was right about what had happened. And years later, Senna himself admitted it. He said he had made a decision before the race that if Prost beat him into the first corner, he would not back away. Retaliation, delivered in the only language still available after everything else had been exhausted. What had started as a disagreement about racing lines had become something neither man could step back from, because stepping back would have meant conceding not just position, but identity. Prost believed winning meant managing every variable, including your opponent's psychology. Senna believed winning meant never accepting a limit someone else tried to impose on you. These philosophies could not share a piece of asphalt. When Prost smiled in that briefing room, he believed he was communicating power. What he had not considered was that Senna did not experience that smile as intimidation. He experienced it as permission. Permission to stop calculating. Permission to stop hoping that institutions would deliver justice. Permission to respond. Prost retired at the end of 1993 with 4 world championships, one of the greatest careers in the history of the sport. He and Senna were reportedly moving towards something like reconciliation. They had agreed to drive together at Williams in 1994. They had spoken by telephone. The bitterness was beginning to dissolve. On May 1st, 1994, Ayrton Senna died at Imola. He was 34 years old. Alain Prost was among the pallbearers at his funeral in São Paulo. He walked slowly through streets lined with more than 3 million people. He stood at the graveside with his hands folded and his face still. Years later, in an interview, Prost said that the rivalry with Senna had been the most important relationship of his professional life, that it had pushed him past limits he would never have found alone, and that the loss of it, in the way it ended, was something he had never fully processed. He said simply, "There was never anyone else like him." Power is not what you hold when you believe the outcome is already decided. Power is what remains when someone takes everything from you, and you find that it made you more dangerous, not less. Ayrton Senna never needed an institution to tell him he was right. He needed a circuit, a car, and someone to underestimate him one more time. If this story reached something in you, share it with someone who needs it today. And leave one word in the comments. Just one word. Senna.